Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop, Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. And tonight we are talking politics. This is a big year for Virginia. We have statewide elections. Our entire House of Delegates is up. And of course, in Fairfax County, we have a school board special election come August. So I've got lots of folks to talk to tonight. And the first guest, I'm very pleased to say, is Justin Fairfax. Justin is the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor in this year's election on November 7th. Justin is a graduate of Duke University with a bachelor's degree in public policy studies and from Columbia Law School with a Juris Doctor. He's currently with the international law firm of Venable LLP, where he is a member of its litigation practice, handling white-collar criminal and complex litigation. He was an assistant attorney general for the Eastern District of Virginia in the Major Crimes and Narcotics Unit and as deputy coordinator for the Northern Virginia Human Trafficking Task Force. He has real-world big business experience as general counsel and vice president of business development for one of the largest food services and facilities management companies in the United States. And he also has small business ownership with his wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, of a dental practice in Fairfax. Now, Justin's first foray into politics came in 2013 when he was a candidate for the Attorney General in Virginia, running in a primary against a well-known state senator, and he astounded the Democratic establishment by nearly winning that primary. He won nearly 50% of the vote in this year's three-way race for the Democratic nomination for Lieutenant Governor. So, welcome, Justin. I'm so glad you're able to take time out from your schedule.
Thank you so much, Bettina.
I can tell from Facebook you are everywhere. So.
Well, we're glad to be here with you tonight, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to the great viewers and people all around the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we're very excited about November the 7th and this election.
Well, it's coming up pretty quickly. We're 106.
Yes. About 106. No one's counting, but
no one's counting. We're not counting. We're not counting.
About 106 days away from the November the 7th election, and the excitement's been very high. We're a little bit over a month away from the primary that we had on June the 13th, and as you mentioned, it was a great night. There was tremendous turnout. We had about 540,000 Democratic primary voters to about 360,000 Republican primary voters. So there was a huge, I think, enthusiasm gap, and that, I think, bodes very well. And we, in our campaign for Lieutenant Governor, were fortunate to have won more than 250,000 votes on June the 13th. So we're very excited about the momentum that's building, the energy around the campaign, and look forward to a great night on November the 7th. So
tell people who you are. I gave them a little taste of this, but it wasn't like you came full-blown from Duke University. So how did you get here? What's the backstory?
Yes. So as a shared prior, I was born actually in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So
we won't hold that against you.
For all the Steelers fans out there, but my mom.
Now you've guaranteed the win.
My mom went to the University of Pittsburgh for undergrad and for pharmacy school, and so that's how I came to be born there. And when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my parents, who I'm close with both of them, loved them both very much, but they got divorced. And so what that meant was that my mom, who had 4 kids, and I was the youngest of those 4, ended up having to move us to a place where we could sort of start over. And that place was with my late maternal grandparents, 2 really incredible people. My grandfather, Charles Butler, was a postal worker for 45 years in Washington, D.C. He was also a Howard University graduate and a World War II veteran. My grandmother, also a Howard University graduate. She was a nurse at Freedman's Hospital, which is now Howard University Hospital. And so when their oldest child, my mom, came knocking on their door and said that she needed a place to start over, they did something really incredible and took all 5 of us into their home. Wow. And that really allowed, my family, my mom, all of us to have really the comeback of a lifetime. And so she was able to save up enough money working as a pharmacist at then People's Drug, if you remember.
Oh, I
People's.
remember People's Drug. That's exactly
so that was
right.
CVS Pharmacy a long time ago.
That's right.
And so saved up enough money to buy the house right across the street from my grandparents. And it's the house where she still lives today. Wow. And just as sort of miraculously was able to send, with the help of my dad and our family, all 4 of her children to college and 2 of us to law school.
Wow.
And so that really sort of improbable journey and story is really what fuels my own passion for public service and making sure that more people get that same shot at the American dream, no matter where they start, how much money their family has, the color of their skin, who they love, their gender, that they get a chance to rise economically, to get a great high-quality education, to have health care, and really get the benefit of the things that we were very fortunate to have gotten. And so that has driven me my entire life around wanting to be involved in public service to make sure that more people get to travel the same road that we got to travel.
So you're not just one of these Trump effect candidates.
No, not at all.
A lot of people coming out of the woodwork all of a sudden.
Right.
But this has been more of a lifelong attitude of yours.
Absolutely. And it's why, as you mentioned, when I went to Duke University, I actually was a public policy major at Duke. So I knew very early on that I wanted to be engaged in public policy, to use that as a means to help people advance in their lives. And it's also why I went to law school. Went to Columbia for law school in New York and was on the law review there and got a lot of great opportunities. Actually, in between, this may be something people don't know, I took 2 years off between Duke and Columbia and actually worked. My very first job out of college in 2000, when I graduated, was on the Gore-Lieberman campaign. So I was actually Tipper Gore's briefing coordinator on that campaign. Nice. Moved down to Nashville, Tennessee, where the national headquarters was, and had a phenomenal time. I said I loved everything about that campaign except the ending.
Except the ending. The ending was not so good.
I was not thrilled about the ending, but it was a tremendous experience. And then I actually moved back to Washington, D.C., and I worked in the office of then Senator John Edwards from North Carolina as a legislative correspondent for Judiciary Affairs. So really got to learn the way the Senate functioned, the legislative process, and again, further that commitment to public service, and then carry that on after law school as well.
Well, let's talk about what you're hearing. You're going around the Commonwealth.
Absolutely.
What are you hearing? What's everybody talking about as you go around?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the Trump effect. That certainly is top of mind for a lot of people. A lot of people are very concerned with what's going on in Washington, D.C. They really don't want to see that replicated here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. They, regardless, frankly, of party, they're concerned with the chaos of this administration. Every day there seems to be, 2 or 3 new crises, and the lack of integrity, the lack of truth-telling, and people really want, someone to put America's interests first, and in this case, the Commonwealth of Virginia's interest as well. So I think that is certainly at play here in Virginia. The president is only at about 36% approval rating in Virginia, so it really is something that people are concerned about. But also what I hear, and this is what our message has really been about, is that people are feeling economic anxiety. Virginia has been fortunate to have some great leadership with Governor Terry McAuliffe and Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam and Mark Herring, and over the last 4 years, we really have experienced great sort of economic growth and indicators. The unemployment rate has gone down from 5.4% when they took office in 2014 down to now 3.7%. So that is tremendous. We also have seen more jobs, about 190,000 new jobs created, new industries being attracted. And so all those signs are good, and that's been great leadership. But also people are still, feeling, economic anxiety in different aspects of their life. They are worried about health care.
Well, that's a big worry. I know I saw Aetna pulled out of Virginia.
Right.
It's a huge number of people, myself included, that are going to have to figure out what to do next.
Absolutely. No, it is a big concern. And of course, Virginia is one of only 19 states not to have expanded Medicaid. And that is a fight that Terry McAuliffe and Ralph Northam have been fighting. It's one that I will certainly continue, because we're talking not only about our economy. It would bring 30,000 new jobs. We've already given up about $10.4 billion with a B in federal money, giving away about $6.6 million every day, but it would cover 400,000 additional Virginians with health insurance.
It's like those people coming out of the mountains in Wise County this week. This is their big show up once a year to get medical assistance.
That's exactly right, at the RAM clinic, the remote area medical clinic, and actually Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam was just down there, and I was talking with him.
Every year he goes.
Yes, he goes every year, and he of course is a pediatric neurologist. He's a doctor. He actually sees patients, and it really is heartbreaking. I mean, when you hear and read about these stories. And I actually read about a story of one woman who actually was from Maryland, drove all the way down to the Ram Clinic, and she had some dental issues, and she couldn't really afford to get them taken care of on her own. And so her plan to take care of her dental issues was to save up enough money, I believe for about 6 months, to get gas in the car and to rent a hotel, and then go and get free medical dental care. And those stories break your heart, and it makes you know that we have to expand Medicaid. We have to give people access to affordable, high-quality education. My wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, actually went to the VCU School of Dentistry. We, as you mentioned, bought a family dental practice here about 10 years ago. She actually has volunteered in the past in the Northern Neck in what's called the Mission of Mercy program, where dental students and others would go and treat patients, for free.
Didn't she just get some kind of honor from VCU? Was it VCU?
She did. She did actually. In 2015, it was her 10-year reunion. She was honored as the most outstanding dental school alumna of the last decade.
Nice.
At VCU. So she didn't ever brag on herself, but
hey, I don't mind
bragging on her at all. But
it's your idea.
That's right. So we really do care that people have more help, adequate health care, affordable health care, and that is a key component, by the way, to economic security. We think it's important that we have jobs and create jobs, but economic security goes beyond just having a job. There was a report that was done by the United Way recently, and they talked about this phenomenon of the ALICE, ALICE, assets limited, income constrained, and employed. And so essentially these are people who effectively are working poor. And so they're working every day, tremendous number of hours, but because they are not sort of getting that economic mobility and security and opportunity, they're kind of stuck. And we want to make sure that more of those folks get to rise. That's why we need to raise the minimum wage. In Virginia, it's $7.25 an hour.
It is.
The lowest in the country. It's the federally mandated minimum. We're $1.50 less than West Virginia. In our minimum wage, so that's it's kind of shocking.
That is shocking.
In a place as as well off as the Commonwealth of Virginia, and in addition to raising the minimum wage, we have got to get people into higher paying jobs, and that's been a key part of our platform is middle skill jobs.
So what is a middle skill job? I've heard that phrase. What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So middle skill jobs are jobs that require more than a 4-year high school diploma, but less than a 4-year college degree.
Okay, so community college,
exactly. Community college
certificates,
also apprenticeship programs. There are a number of great unions that have wonderful apprenticeship programs, shipbuilding, IBW, so many others, electricians, HVAC technicians, and there are a wide range of these middle skill jobs. Be dental technicians, long distance truck drivers, certified welders, and so these are great jobs that pay on average somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000, which is pretty extraordinary when you think that minimum wage is only $14,500 per year. So it's a great opportunity.
Well, we can hear the music, so we know we've got to close this down to go to our breaks. But we will be back after these public service announcements with more from Justin Fairfax. So stay with us because we will be back.
Money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind. Love is patient.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. my human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. And we are here tonight with Justin Fairfax. He is the Democratic nominee for Lieutenant Governor in Virginia. The election is November 7th. That is the last day you can vote. There is also early voting that will start several weeks before that. So, Justin, I want to talk about student loan restructuring.
Absolutely.
Because I know that is something that you are interested in.
Absolutely, very passionate about that.
My younger son, who of course went to Duke for his,
Great
for his
university.
doctorate, what can you say?
He's very smart.
He's a very smart fella. He absolutely is. And he is working at a nonprofit hospital and is in that loan repayment, loan forgiveness program that is being threatened at the federal level.
Right.
So what do we do about that? Because it seems to me, when we were talking before about access to medical care, that a lot of the nonprofit hospitals, a lot of the rural places are staffed by people who are in that federal loan forgiveness program.
Absolutely.
And it's sort of counterintuitive to say we need to increase all this access, but yet we're going to take that benefit away. So what are some ideas that we have in terms of Virginia to deal with this issue?
Absolutely. And if I could make one footnote, we talked a little bit about Medicaid expansion. The fact that we have not expanded Medicaid is hurting our rural communities, and particularly our rural hospitals. There are a number of them that are closing because they can't afford under the current model without Medicaid expansion to continue to operate. And then, as you mentioned, even for the ones that we do have, you have staff now who, many of whom chose to work in those areas in part because of the opportunity to be able to repay that debt. They're probably taking less income than they otherwise would have, but they're sort of mission driven and they're doing something that we need to have done. And yet, at the federal level, they're threatening to kind of pull the rug from out under them. And I think it's shameful. I think we've got to fight back against it. There are also some major concerns about Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos and what she's doing in delaying rules that are protecting student borrowers. And so, in addition to so many other things that are of concern. So, those are all really significant issues. But here's what can be done at the state level. To your question, about 9 or so other states have implemented what they call student loan refinancing authorities, in different versions of it. But the gist of it is essentially it allows young people and their families to try to refinance their high interest student loan debt to make it more manageable, hopefully pay it off more quickly, and to free them up to get on with their economic lives so they're not trying to pay down this debt for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so the average debt load in Virginia is about $30,000 with an average interest rate of about 8%.
Wow.
So that is pretty significant when you think about that interest rate. If people are allowed to refinance that down to lower market rates, let's say 2.5%, 3.5%, they can shave hundreds of dollars off of their monthly bill. And that then frees them up to do other things like save up to buy a home. Better fund their retirement earlier on in their lives, which makes a huge difference down the road. Start a family, get access to capital to start and grow a small business. So actually the realtors are one of the biggest proponents of this legislation. Houses, exactly. And I think there was a study done that for every $250 that someone saves on their monthly student loan bill, it equates to about $40,000 in additional purchasing power for a home. So that is really a powerful economic argument for why we need to help people deal, with this crushing student loan debt that is just hampering an entire generation's economic growth. And it's something that's smart, it's the right thing to do, and it's good for our economy as well.
Well, given how powerful I always hear the realtor lobby is, they ought to be able to get that done here to help the kids.
Absolutely. My mother-in-law's a realtor too, so they're very powerful.
I hear it now. So let's talk about some other things, and this is one of my pet peeves about the state government.
Right.
As federal does it as well. It's sort of unfunded mandates.
Right.
And we had some legislation that got passed, and as you may know, I'm on the board, Community Services Board here.
Yes, absolutely. Very important.
Mandating certain services that the community services boards across the state are now going to have to do. And of course, we've got the Department of Justice settlement that we also are doing. And the state's not funding this. I mean, how do we provide all these services? Where's the money going to come from? Because essentially the state is just pushing that down onto localities. And as we saw in Fairfax last year when we tried the meals tax, it didn't go through. People are not really pleased.
Yeah, absolutely, and rightfully so. And you've seen this, from your sort of service, and this is so important. The work that the community service boards are doing. This is a direct link to the community in terms of providing, mental health services and issues around opioid addiction and things for juveniles, as well. So this is on the ground, daily quality of life issues. And so I totally understand the concerns around the unfunded mandates, because while we obviously would like to have more services be delivered, and they're critically necessary, particularly in this day and age when the opioid crisis is really just that, a crisis, where we're on pace to lose over 1,000 people per year to this crisis unless we do something to change the trajectory. We have to have the state be a partner with our localities to make sure that we can actually fund these programs. And as you mentioned, there's already significant pressure on the budgets of many localities, counties and cities and townships that are having difficulty meeting their current obligations, particularly to our schools. We have to try to fully fund our schools. We actually need to make sure that we are investing those resources in our schools. You mentioned the meals tax, which would have brought another $100 million a year into Fairfax County public schools, and unfortunately that didn't pass. But we have got to make sure, whether it is infrastructure, education, that we really are partnering the state with the localities to make sure that our quality of life in the Commonwealth of Virginia stays high and gets better, and that really is going to require a commitment from every elected official as well.
Yeah, I hope that other people will sort of hear that message, because we clearly need it. We have we actually had our CSB is its extra category, extra large. We're the only one in it. We've got a lot of things to do.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some other issues near and dear to my heart, which of course is health care for women, reproductive health care, and the assault on Planned Parenthood. And
absolutely.
Where does all of that stand? Where do you stand on these things? I've got to assume, knowing your wife, that you're on the right side of the issue, as we would say.
Without question. And you're right, this is such a serious and significant issue. I am the proud vice chair of Planned Parenthood Metropolitan Washington Action Fund, the C4 board that covers this jurisdiction. And so I'm a big supporter of Planned Parenthood and of what they do as a direct service provider, in our communities. And so, we have to not only fight back when they try to defund Planned Parenthood, which is something that they attempted to do right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the General Assembly, and they perennially go after Planned Parenthood, but we've actually got to support Planned Parenthood, and it's something that I have done, for some time now. And so, without question, we want to make sure that women get to make their own reproductive health care choices, that they have access to affordable, high quality health care. And this is something that I'm committed to. I know that in our general election on the other side, Senator Jill Vogel is the nominee on the Republican side for Lieutenant Governor. And of course, she, unfortunately has a really awful record when it comes to these issues. She sponsored and introduced the bill around invasive ultrasounds, mandatory ultrasounds for women, and that made Virginia a laughingstock. You remember it was on the national news.
It was.
There were protests of many hundreds and thousands of people, and so we can't go in that direction. We don't want to slide back and be sort of repressing people's rights. But we really need to make sure that Virginia is open, welcoming, that people have access to get high quality, affordable health care, high quality education, and economic security and opportunity. And so these are things that I think make us the great Commonwealth that we are, and we have to continue to move forward on those things.
I think you've reminded me, and I want to make sure that our viewers remember that we have a one-person, I think, deficit in the Senate.
Right,
so
21 to 19.
We need the Lieutenant Governor, because as Lieutenant Governor, you will be breaking those ties
Absolutely.
in a way that will benefit women.
That's
It's going to
right.
benefit
Absolutely.
children and education.
Absolutely.
And that becomes extremely important, both to make sure we have you as
Right.
the Lieutenant Governor, but also that we have Ralph Northam as the Governor.
That's right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Terry McAuliffe had a huge number of vetoes, a record number
Absolutely.
of vetoes.
He sure did. He sure did.
And that's like, phew, amazing.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about, I know one of the other things that people talk about a lot in this
Yes.
time frame is the environmental issues.
Right.
I was listening to someone the other day say they had been to the beach and
Right.
there was at some resort and they couldn't go out one of the doors because the water was already up to the door.
Right, absolutely. Climate change is real, and it's having a massive impact. And I actually was reading, some information about a study that said that Hampton Roads is actually the second most susceptible area in the United States of America to the effects of climate change.
Oh, wow.
And I have spent a lot of time in Hampton Roads. Of course, it impacts all over the Commonwealth of Virginia, but you get sort of a modest rain and the streets flood.
Right.
And that not only has a tremendous environmental impact, but also has a tremendous economic impact. Businesses, have to close. Schools have had to close due to flooding. And so we have got to really get serious about this and address these issues. I think Governor McAuliffe and Ralph Northam, again, have really been focused on this, and Mark Herring as well. But we have to, as a state, come together really on a bipartisan basis and say, these are existential threats when you're talking about parts of our Commonwealth that are really, going to be affected dramatically if the sea level continues to rise and we don't do anything about it. So this is something that I'm committed to. The Lieutenant Governor sits on a number of boards and commissions, as you mentioned, one of which is the Governor's Climate Change and Resiliency Update Commission. And so would definitely use that position to take leadership on these issues, in addition to breaking ties, in the right direction on the Senate floor. And so again, we have to be serious about this. And you mentioned someone going to the beach. Transportation is another significant issue, right? Traveling to places around the Commonwealth of Virginia, it is difficult, and frankly, it would have been even more difficult. And I'd be remiss not to mention this. In 2013, we had the transportation bill. Of course, that was a bipartisan bill. Governor McDonnell, you took leadership role in this, and you had Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and the House who were supporting it. And as tough as the situation is now with regard to transportation, imagine if we had not invested that $6 billion. And again, Ralph Northam voted for it, supported it. Mark Herring supported it. Jill Vogel voted against the transportation bill. And then Ed Gillespie, who's running for governor, just criticized it, the bill. And so that, again, would have taken us so far backwards. It had the second extension of the Silver Line. Was a part of that bill. Imagine if we weren't building phase 2 of the Silver Line right now. We see all the economic development that's popped up around it, and we would be in a much worse situation. The widening of I-64 down in Hampton Roads, the projects around 29. We drove about 40,000 miles in the primary, so I have been in every kind of traffic you can imagine around the Commonwealth. But again, that was a critical bill. Some people call it a game changer, and we made the right decision in supporting it, and we've got to keep moving Virginia forward to grow our economy, diversify it.
So, Justin, people who want to help, what can they do?
Yes, well, we would love for them to visit our website, Fairfax4LG, FORLG.com, and we will have many opportunities over the next 3 months to volunteer for November the 7th.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And being a guest.
Thank
and
you.
Good luck. And stay with us because we will be back with Ken Plum.
I wish I was in school. If only I had a math test today. I'll stay after class. I'll clean the chalkboard. I wish I was in school.
School ends, but free lunches for your kids don't have to. Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/summer meals for help.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I and made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? And now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton, and I'm your host. And we have with us now the #1 delegate in Virginia, Ken Plum. He is the delegate from the 36th District. He has been in the House of Delegates for, I think it's about 37 years, doing a great job for the people in Reston and in parts of Vienna. So, Ken, I want to welcome you here tonight to talk about this year's election. The entire House of Delegates is up, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, you don't have any opposition.
I have opposition in the form of apathy. In other words, if people decide not to vote, then it's not to my advantage, nor is it to the advantage of those who are running statewide and running then throughout the state. So I technically don't have a name next to mine on the ballot, but I run an aggressive campaign anyway. And I do that because it's really important during a campaign season to use this as an educational opportunity when people are paying attention, or we hope they're paying attention, and we work hard to try to get more to pay attention in an election cycle, to get to know the issues. And then I explain to people that when you cast a vote for me, you cast a vote affirmatively that I'm doing what you want me to do. But it's important also, too, though, that not only on the ballot this year, in addition to your single House of Delegate member that you'll be voting on, would be those people who are running for Ralph Northam for the governor. You've just talked to Justin Fairfax for lieutenant governor, and of course our dear Attorney General Mark Herring. They all need to have votes. So I'm campaigning on behalf of civic engagement, and I will tell you, in my years of being involved in politics, I've never found a more receptive audience than I'm finding this year.
Really?
What's happening at the national level is percolating itself down. People have realized that, gee whiz, if it weren't for people voting differently, you know, we got to have a whole different scenario.
That's true.
How different it would be in our country. And how troublesome it is, what's happening now as we degrade government, degrade policies that have been part of our government and so on. As we seem to say that lying is okay, lying is not okay. So those kind of things have energized people, and I hope that we will see, as I think we will, from various organizations about Million Moms March, the indivisible groups that are organizing around the area, a higher level of participation than we may have seen in the past. It's time not only to elect good people to office, it's time to send a message.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are in Virginia in the position to do that this year because, except for New Jersey, which I guess isn't competitive, we're kind of the only game in town.
We're the only game in town in that regard, and I think a lot of people will read a lot into the outcomes of the Virginia election, how it is that the national is reflecting it. But also, too, I have to say that beyond that, we also have a number of challenges in Virginia. We've had an outstanding governor in Terry McAuliffe. We couldn't have a better governor than Terry McAuliffe. Ralph Northam is going to be equal to him for sure, but he's been great in the sense that some of the very conservative legislation that we've heard about in other states, in North Carolina, for example, the anti-LGBT bills and so on, those bills, many of them passed in Virginia. We didn't read about them, though, because Terry McAuliffe vetoed them.
Exactly.
And we had enough Democrats, by the skin of our teeth, to be able to sustain those vetoes in the House. And as a consequence, we were spared some of the adverse legislation that would come about if you had a different election outcome. So,
well, and you also have, you can look at, for people who say, oh, these are just social issues, you can look at what happened to North Carolina and say, no, they're not. They have a huge economic impact as the big companies and the soccer tournaments and, you know, the different sports people said, no, we're not going to come to North Carolina because of these bills that you have put in. And you're right, we've avoided that in Virginia.
And it's an economic issue, some people call it a social issue, but it's a justice issue. It's about people being treated fairly and equitably by the law, by the courts, and within society. And so there's been a number of people in Virginia. We have a tattered history, you know. Virginia, before the Civil War, was a slave-owning state big time. After that, we went through the Jim Crow era. The civil rights movement got rid of a lot of that. We find it creeping back in. Efforts, for example, to restrict people who go to the polls by limiting their ballot, making it complicated to register to vote and all that sort of stuff. And all this hocus pocus about somehow there's fraud that they're trying to prevent. It's not that. They're trying to hold them to power. And that is very critically important. And I think more people are getting that message. And again, I'm very hopeful that in November we're going to see a high voter turnout. And I hope our discussion tonight will excite people to say, yeah, I want to go participate. Yeah.
So you've been in the General Assembly now for the 37 years. So why do you want to do it again? I mean, this is a long time. You're in the minority. Yeah, it's a lot of work to be done. I mean, the issues that I have worked on, one issue I'll just give you an illustration of that a lot of people now are aware of is gerrymandering and its effect on legislative outcomes. Whereas some groups say now the legislators pick their constituents rather than constituents picking their representative. I introduced the bill in 1982. It was the first redistricting bill introduced in Virginia, and one of the few ever introduced in the country at that point in time, because it came to my attention that although I was in the majority at that point, if we were to act, though, as the majority was tending to act at that point in terms of holding on to power, it would not be in our best long-term interest. And furthermore, it wasn't fair, and it wasn't just. So I put in one of the bills, and the Democrats kind of laughed me out of the room. I've introduced the bill now about 10 times since then. The Republicans laughed me out of the room. But something has happened that keeps me going, and that is that in this issue, One Virginia 2021, a group that's formed now statewide to say they want to get rid of what they're calling jury-rigged elections. Those where the election outcome is known by the way the lines are drawn. So I hope to be around to help conclude that fight. And that will have a long-term, I think, positive impact on the outcome of elections. First of all, you'll probably have more competitive elections. Those of us who stay in office without competition, that's not good for the system. It may be convenient for me, but long-term, it's not good for the system. And so that if we get rid of that, that'll be good. Secondly, I'm an educator, by background. I think the most important function, really, of government is education. So much springs out of that. When Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal, and I'm sure if he were here today, he'd say all persons are created equal. Right. But when he came back to Virginia, one of the first things he did was to propose a system of public education. This was in about 1780 or so. Never came about. He had a grammar school plan in mind. He wanted the university. He got his university. The grammar schools never happened until after the Civil War, 1870. We got public schools in Virginia. And they're so critical to a system of government, a society, if you will, built around good information. And so we have, in the past several years, actually seen a decline in the amount of money going to public education. Now, some will say, oh my gosh, the dollars are more. The dollars are more, but there's more students. Right. So if you divide them out, you realize we're spending less on students than we did in 2008. That's not a good circumstance. No. I can't walk away from leaving that alone. Right. So there are a series of issues like that that continue to animate me, and as you can tell, still excite me. And they're not something that I deal with casually. I work on hard for all the time. And I now am in a position where my career as an educator, I retired in 1996. I do this now time and a half. It's a labor of love for me, and it's something that I think I can make a difference with. And the other thing I will tell you, if I can just keep right on talking for a minute. Sure, go right ahead.
The other thing that excites me this year is the number of outstanding candidates who are running. We've had problems in the past recruiting candidates. The job doesn't pay very much. If you have a family and you have a regular work opportunity, it's hard to fit it in to be a delegate or a senator. But now we have competition throughout the state. And that has come about again because of what's happening nationally. People are saying we can no longer sit on the sidelines. So we've got to have these people who've been very conservative, who've carried the day on some of these bills and so on in the House. We've got to have them have a challenger and report back to the public. And so I see now in Fairfax and in fact throughout the state, some of the best qualified candidates that I can remember in a long time. They're right on the issues. They're animated to work hard. They're doing a great job of campaigning. So it's going to be exciting in Virginia this fall.
So do you think, because we have just that one vote ability to sustain vetoes, and we've got all of those new delegates, all of those are delegate candidates, and all of those districts, the 17 districts that Hillary Clinton won that are held by Republicans.
Yep.
Are you pretty confident that we're going to pick up at least some of those seats?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to pick up seats. The question is how many. It would be great if we picked up 17, because then we'd be in the majority.
We'd be in the majority. That'd be
now,
amazing.
We got to be careful when in the majority, though, and not make the mistakes of the current majority.
True.
The current majority, when they were in the minority, had all kinds of complaints about the way the Democrats ran things, and when they took over, they took our mistakes and compounded them. So we got to be alert to do that. But I'm kind of confident that we're either going to move into the majority, or we're going to get so close that there's a recognition in another cycle or two. And I watched this when we went from Democratic control to Republican control, that the balance of power in the legislature gets so close, you have to start cooperating. You know, when you have a 66 to 34 majority, you don't have to do a lot of cooperating. But when the numbers get closer, cooperation increases. So we got to do our part. Northern Virginia, we can add to that 34 number, I'm confident. Yeah.
Well, and particularly because one of the incumbent Republicans retired, so we've got an open seat up here that I think people were not aware of. We've got a great candidate over there. So hopefully everybody will come out.
And a lot of people, I don't think, recognize that, particularly in Fairfax, there are some districts that historically voted for Democrats for president, for governor, but when it gets down to the delegate line, they cast a vote another way. Sometimes I think that comes from the fact that we've had lack of challengers in the past, and sometimes I think it comes from the fact that there's a certain fatigue that sets in, that people get excited about presidential elections and so on, but when it comes around to that off year, like this year, they maybe decide to sit at home. In fact, the numbers show that, the numbers sit at home.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we do have some really amazing candidates. I went down to the Women's Summit in Leesburg probably about a month or so ago, and many of them were there. And there was a lot of excitement about the candidates. So hopefully we will be able to pull some of those together and get it done.
A number of issues that we face are women's kind of issues. These are women candidates, right?
Yeah,
that's a good combination. That's a good work. I'm extremely excited that we will come closer also to get fair representation of women in the legislature with this election cycle. So I think a lot of things are going for us. If we just get the word out, get people enthused about it, and I think the results will be good for us.
So how are you going to do that? Because Reston is such a massive Democratic base that, as you say, running with apathy against you is, if that vote gets depressed, that's not a good sign for the statewide people. Yeah, no, it's not. And that's why then again, you'll see me out doing things that every candidate does who has an opponent. I will be having meet and greets, and I will be having a number of community meetings. I coordinate heavily with the Indivisible group. But the point of all that is to get people knowledgeable of the fact November 7th there's an election, and also there's one August 29th, which I know you're going to talk about later. Talk about later?
Yep.
I want to thank you for coming in tonight and talking with us, Ken. We got a whole bunch of other stuff that we didn't even get to, but we'll get you back and talk some more. And I'm sure you'll beat the apathy because you've got great energy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Hey, Hard, what's this? That's my resignation. You're resigning. Why? You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit. Oh, I forgot. I'll do better. Please don't quit on me.
Don't let your heart quit on you. Get your uncontrolled high blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late.
So you can't save money? That's easy as pie. Brown bagging lunch instead of going out. $6 save times 5 days a week times 10 years is $21,000. That's a lot of lettuce. Small changes today, big bucks tomorrow. Feedthepig.org.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally. I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands? My son has lots of dolls.
But did you know terry-cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that. Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton and I'm your host. And I'm very excited to have with me Karen Keys-Gamarra. She is the Democratic endorsed nominee for the countywide seat on the Fairfax School Board. She ran for the school board seat from the Sully District in 2015 and narrowly lost by less than 200 votes. She's a graduate of Tulane University and the Washington University School of Law in St. Louis. She has a lifelong commitment to helping children. As an attorney, she handles family matters and works extensively with children in crises. She is a court-appointed guardian ad litem, and she deals with education-related issues, including discipline and special education. She has also been a court-appointed special advocate for children, particularly in domestic violence situations. She is currently a member of the Fairfax County Planning Commission, and she serves on its school committee. She is on the advisory board of an organization that deals with domestic violence, and she was appointed a member of the school board task force, budget task force, which is essential given the school's perpetually underfunded status. So welcome, Karen. I am so glad to be able to talk with you. I know you've got a special election.
Yes.
August 29th.
Yes.
Regular polling places.
Yes.
6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Precisely.
And I always like to say that's the last day people can vote because there is early voting. And if you're going to be on vacation, it is no excuse.
Right.
Go early.
You can go to Fairfax County Government Center up until August 26th.
Right. So do that because this, I'm going to say this, you can't say this because you're the candidate, but I can say this. This is a special election, and special elections in Virginia are governed by a time frame that's set out in the statute. And based on when the individual whose seat you're running for resigned, we have to have a special election and spend around $250,000 that the county really doesn't have. Whereas if the person had waited just a little bit, we could have done this in November, on November 7th instead, and saved that money. And instead, and I find this particularly offensive because I think the people who are on the school board need to show that they are fiscally responsible. And it is fiscally irresponsible to cause the county to spend $250,000 just because you're hoping for a low turnout that will allow a Republican endorsed person to win. So that's my speech, that's my soapbox, and now I'll get off of it. But it just annoys me no end that we're spending that kind of money when it was so unnecessary. But let's talk education.
Okay.
Quality of education in Fairfax County Public Schools. As I've said in the intro, the school system is always telling us, for some reason it always seems to be $100 million that you're short year over year over year. Just doesn't seem to matter what amount of money you actually get.
Yes.
What improvements can be done in this kind of an environment? There isn't more money, so what happens?
Well, I think you said it earlier in your intro. Fiscal responsibility is very important. As you stated, I've been on the budget committee, and what I realized from that is that our school system is doing a very good job. We're tackling a lot of issues, but I also think that we need to seriously look at our budget in the same way that the county has and have a line item budget review so that you can actually understand, first of all, where the money is going, what objectives have been set, and whether we're actually achieving those objectives or not. Because I think that we put things in place, but we also need to monitor where that money is going and whether it's being effective.
And that is something that I've always sort of wondered about, because what I hear is that it's very hard to do sort of a line of business analysis like the county did, because there's a little money over here for the program and a little money over here, and it would require the school system staff to actually pull all of that together, and there apparently is some resistance to doing that. Maybe because they don't want to have to admit how much they're spending.
I can't answer that question, but I can say that as a planning commissioner, I routinely ask questions. We receive staff reports all the time, and it provides the county's explanation. Oftentimes I feel that it is my duty as a representative of the community to question what those numbers mean. And if the information that I need isn't included in that application or it hasn't been provided, then I ask for it, and I expect to get it.
So what are some of your priorities? You talk about in some of your literature and on your Facebook page, talking about retaining exceptional teachers.
Absolutely.
Is that all the teachers exceptional, or is there some sort of a merit analysis that needs to be done?
Well, I wasn't referring to a merit analysis. We have good teachers. We have exceptional teachers. But we also have some problems retaining our teachers. In some schools, we are only retaining about 40% of our schools, not all of our teachers. That's a crisis. And when we have teachers talking about their salaries, and we have concerns about teacher morale, and we have problems retaining our teachers, then we really have to focus on that issue. And we have to look at things like, why are they having why is the morale lower than it should be? We have to improve communication with our staff. We have to recognize that our teachers and staff really are the critical resource that helps us to get the job done. And so I think that I would like to take steps to make sure that our staff understands that they are a priority. We certainly need to look at diversifying our funding and all of that, and we need to be fiscally responsible, but we also need to recognize that this is a priority and that this is a crisis.
So it's easy, I guess, for teachers, because as I read it, you can make more money in Loudoun County at this point in Arlington, so it's relatively easy. Are class sizes another issue? I hear people talk about that.
Absolutely. I mean, as an attorney and a guardian ad litem, I go all over the county. I get an opportunity to talk to teachers and staff members, parents, and you hear complaints about large class sizes. And the problem is that teachers are not in a position to differentiate learning, and it becomes a frustrating situation for the teachers as well as the students. And so that's the reason why we have to also focus on class sizes, making sure that we're actually equipping our teachers to be able to do their job, because that's really that's the reason we're a public school.
Well, you talked about communication, and one of the things that many years ago, when I was the president of the PTSA at James Madison High School, a number of the teachers would say that they were afraid to talk about issues because they felt that the principal sort of controlled everything. I mean, how do you get that good level of communication going where people feel safe in saying what they're going to say?
Well, that's another thing. I think I've talked about ways of making sure that teachers can communicate. I think we have to have some clear lines of communication. I think that we need to develop ways that teachers can submit their concerns anonymously. We currently have surveys, but it's not targeted enough to be able to know where the problems really are oftentimes. And so things can kind of get lost. And I know in talking to staff members, they have said to me, well, we have this problem or that problem, but I'm afraid to say so because I fear retaliation. And that really should not be the case. And I think that one of my objectives would be to make sure that our staff members understand that I'm willing to speak to them, that I want them to have a way where they can communicate in confidence and not fear retaliation. Because let's face it, they're on the front line. They know what our kids are going through. They know what the problems are. We can't afford to lose their viewpoint.
Well, I'm surprised that we are losing so many teachers. Let me ask you a little bit about the George Mason study that came out. Now, that was based on 2012 data.
Yes.
But it was pretty blunt in saying that particularly African American applicants, so they are not being hired. They apparently have the same or better qualifications, but they're not being hired. And then they seem to be appointed to schools that have high minority populations, which in one sense is good. You've got to, you've got not a mentor, but an example to follow that the kids can see. But on the other hand, it's sort of like workforce segregation, which is a bad thing. So what needs to be done to handle that? And recognizing, I saw the school system said, oh, that's old data, we're doing much better. But what's your position on this stuff?
Well, it's not good. The situation is not good. And we need to recognize that while we have language in our strategic plan that says that having a diverse workforce is part of what we're trying to achieve, we also need to recognize that what we've been doing isn't working.
Right.
And we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to understand that perhaps there could be some systemic problems with the way that we hire that is not self-correcting. Previously, there had been an office to look at these types of issues, and that office no longer exists. There have been things that have been done in the past that we're doing again, cultural competence and things of that sort, but they tend to be spot things that happen and then we drop it. We have to take a concerted effort, and we have to first of all recognize that everybody, I don't care where we look like, where we come from, we have some type of implicit bias. We have to look at how we're hiring. Each school tends to be somewhat autonomous. I think that we need to develop best hiring practices, and then we need to have in-house oversight with respect to making sure that those practices are being followed.
How does that work? I mean, I'm assuming that there is some big HR function within the school system. Isn't that already their job? Shouldn't it just be do your job, as we say?
Maybe, but it hasn't happened. Right. And I think we have to deal with the reality of where we are. I have spoken with a number of these teachers, and they verify what the George Mason study says. And so I think that we can't pretend that this isn't an issue. I think that we have to listen to our teachers. I think that we have to work on the attitude with respect to how minority teachers and staff members contribute to the overall health and wealth of our school system, because I think that our students, our non-African American students, benefit from what people of color bring to the schools. And so we can't just see them benefiting, oh, well, this is a black child, so they need a black teacher. Right. All students benefit from diverse viewpoints. And so I think we have some work to do. I think we have the wherewithal to do it and the respect. I don't think any of this is intentional, but I do think that we have to take some concerted efforts to correct it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. How can people find you to help you? What's your website, Facebook?
Karen, the number 4, fairfaxkids.com.
All right. Well, good luck. August 29th, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., your regular voting place. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Bettina.